Thanks, Bok, for that. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As building from the point that's been discussed by Bok, so of course, returning businesses to operational health after a severe shutdown is definitely extremely challenging. So organizations will need to balance the need to adopt the business systems with the possibility that the virus could reemerge if we're not going to take care of ourselves and our employees. So as the scientific community said that the vaccine, the earliest being end of the year, but of course, it's not going to be widely available to everyone. So hence, we need to adapt our strategy to it. So in that case, we have to have that cautious optimism that virus are to be contained. So to prevent any outbreaks and our people are going to be protected. So it's actually been mentioned a lot in the media and even in this uh, webinar about the different types of methods of protection ranging from the PPE, the way to clean it, the types of disinfectants, the behavioral strategies that organizations should be able to adopt. And there were also guidelines that's been issued by different bodies. Like recently, the DTI and DOLE has jointly issued that interim guidelines in going back to work after this ECQ. And that's also coupled with some other international organization. So next slide, please. Yeah. And our framework in LEADS, well, initially would actually include the most important item, which is classifying the type of worker exposure. And in that classifying the type of worker exposure, it has to be decided based on the different processes that these people are actually exposed to. So like, for example, those that are going to be classified under very high and high are majority related to healthcare processes. And these are the healthcare workers, which at this point is in the Philippines, represents like around 20% of all the positive COVID cases. So in that case, there's really that realization how risky their type of job and responsibilities are. And of course, other things, other classification includes those under the medium, which majority of the industry outside of the healthcare industries are going to be classified, includes those like schools, those that has high volume retail like grocery, supermarkets, restaurant staff, probably the police and public transport workers. And of course, those in the first place has lower risk or low exposure type of work arrangement. And in that case, we should also be able to identify the different touch point areas. Why? Because it's not because the company is classified as very high that the type of strategies that we should be adopting are going to be the same across the different ecosystem of their business. It could actually be different from the point of like, as mentioned by the previous speaker a while ago. If that is going to be using the transport vehicle, those that are going to be, for example, going to the banks, going to the supermarket, etc., there are going to be different types of exposure. And in those touch point areas, the consideration here is not only for our employees, but also for our customers. Because the thinking behind it is that, of course, we should be able to control the type of exposure and the spread, possible spread of that of the virus. Next slide, please. And when it comes to that type of controls, it has to be decided again based on the type of workers exposure and based on the types of that of the industry. So there are different control measures that that we can actually adopt that would actually protect our workers. And when it comes to that of the engineering, so of course those air filters. So because it's actually since the virus, there are so much that we should actually learn when it comes to the nature of the virus. So, but recent studies has actually been demonstrating that in closed confined areas where a lot of people are actually present, there's a tendency for the virus to be present in a long period of time. So hence the importance that probably in confined spaces that actually includes, like for example, in a healthcare worker. So there should be that review of that of the air filters. But when it comes to that of the other industries, like that of the manufacturing industries, those offices, etc. So maybe a consideration about a visit of the increasing of that of the ventilation. And the other thing includes, of course, the adopting or having some physical barriers between some of the employees and the customers and among the employees themselves. So when it comes to that of the administrative controls, so a lot has to be revisited when it comes to the policies and the protocols that the company may have. Like, for example, how are the sick workers going to be encouraged to stay at home instead of them coming to the office and be checked and be advised to return home eventually, or unknowingly that people who are experiencing some symptoms are not declaring those symptoms to the company. And all of those other things includes the adoption of the different decorum like virtual meetings, online trainings. Of course, from the previous conversation, there were like questions about that of the training. And maybe in the type of training, so we should also be adapting that to what is important at this point. And then the avoidance of the non-essential travel and the reduction of the number of employees per shift. So some of the companies are adopting like alternate days, like only coming into the office like MWF or TTHS. And some who has one shift only are adopting multiple shifts. So because it's not only about the operation of the business, but it's also about the livelihood of the people. So that we should be able to provide an equal opportunity for the employees to get paid as well. On the safe work practices, so some of it are already being adopted even before, but most at this point, there should actually be a adoption of the different safe work practices depending on the type of processes that we handle. If you are, for example, working in a food handler, or working in a bank, or working in a supermarket, or working in an office, there should be that adoption, because we also have to consider that companies may also have limited resources. So in that case, we have to make that decision. What is it that is going to be optimally advisable for some businesses to be adopting, that is going to be dependent on the worker type of exposure and the different type touch point areas. And so with that of the personal protective equipment. So we've been seeing a lot of personal protective equipment even from before, but what is it that's going to be complementary to the type of hazard exposure that our employees may have? Should they be wearing the face shield, or should they be wearing the full body suit, or should they just be wearing that of the gloves? So it has to be decided based on that, and that is the part of the framework that LEED has, because part of it is actually ensuring that we visit the type of work processes that the company may have. Next.